Yes, I am. So today we're going to do our average rate of change, okay? Have you ever heard average rate of change? Is that something you've heard before?
Yes. Maybe. No. Perhaps.
Some of you may have.
Nah.
Maybe a long time ago, sometime last year or the year before. So we're going to work on that right now. Okay, so I have this for you. It says the average rate of change between 2 points and a function is defined by the following. So I'm going to give you the definition, okay? So I have this notation. Do you know what that little triangle means or what it's called?
No.
I heard somebody.
Triangle or delta?
It's a delta and it means change, okay? So that triangle symbol is the Greek letter for a capital D. Okay, that's a capital D in Greek. Oh, my ink spilled somewhere. Okay, this is a capital D, delta, and that means change. Okay, please write that in there. Capital D is delta. Oops. So we're not going to say triangle f of x. We would say delta f of x. Okay, so this means delta f of x over delta x. So instead of saying delta, if delta means change, how can we rewrite that? Instead of a delta, what are we going to write? Change. So this means change in f of x divided by the change in x, okay? So, before we keep going, we have something called average rate of change. So every time you see it, I want you to think of pretty much one thing. What do you think average rate of change means? What does average rate of change mean? Kind of, going up and down on the graph, maybe. It's the rate at which you change. So it's the average rate that you're changing at, okay? There's another word for it that you might be more familiar with. It has to do with graphing lines, and it starts with an S. Yes. Slope. Okay, average rate of change is another way of saying slope. So if you ever see average rate of change, that means find the slope, okay? So, change in f of x equals change in x. This can also be written as something else. And I'm going to bet that you have not seen it this way. But in the next step, you will have seen it that way, okay? So, my first one is going to be f of x2 minus f of x1. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Oh, you have? You said twice? You've seen it twice? Over x2 minus x1. Have you seen that part? You have seen that part. Okay. What's another way of saying f of x that we know how to say? Y. So instead of saying f of x2, I can say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Have you seen this before?
No.
Yes, you have. This, I can guarantee that you've seen. My last class, they were like, oh, we've seen that, Miss Audette, but we failed that last time we did it. So maybe that's the case. Okay, have you seen y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1? Do you know what that... Oh, I did put... Thank you, Diego. X1. Thank you. Okay, so this is used to find our slope. Okay? Given 2 points, we can find our slope. Is this coming back really slowly? A little bit? Okay. So, if I say find the average rate of change, that means find the slope, use this formula, okay? So, on the next slide, I have an example. Okay, right now, as soon as you finish writing this, I want you to put your pencils down because I'm going to go through the example and you're going to watch, okay? Because yesterday and in the past few days, every time you take your eyes off of the slide and the projector, you don't know where any of the points are coming from. So I want to make sure you're paying attention and then I will let you work along with me, okay? So, on our first example, Here. Hold on. Let me put it back.
Oh yeah, he has it. We're good.
Okay, thanks. So here's my next slide. So I'm going to do part A with you guys. You're going to watch me. Don't write anything down yet. I will give you a couple minutes to write at the end. It says, what is the average rate of change from x equals -2 to x equals 0? So it's telling me average rate of change. So what does that mean I'm going to find? What is another word for average rate of change? Slope. So what is the slope from x equals -2 to x equals 0? Okay? So the way I've started doing this, because I think it makes it a little bit easier, is I know I need to use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, but one of the things most of my students are worst at is the organization of this, and you can't figure out which numbers go where. So I'm going to have you guys label everything. So I have x1 equals, x2 equals, y1, and y2, okay? Do I know any of these values to begin with? Which ones do I know? Or one? I know x1 and x2. So what is x1? -2. So I'm going to fill that in. And what is my x sub 2? That one is 0. Good. Okay. Are we okay so far? So what I'm going to do is on my graph, I'm going to draw a line through each of those x values, just so that you know what I mean. So I know that x equals -2 is right here, and x equals 0 is right here. So if I draw a line, I can now see where do I hit my graph at, okay? So for my first xy coordinate pair, it intersects the graph there. Do you agree? Okay, so what is that point? It's -2, comma, +2. So what's my y1 value? +2. Are you following me so far? Okay. Now for my second point, my x2 and y2, that's going to be here. So my x value was my x value was 0. What's my y value? -2. Good. So my y2 is -2. Is that okay so far? Now I'm going to fill this into my equation. Now I'm going to fill this into my equation. So what's my y2 value? Because I have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What's y2? -2. And what's y1? 2. And what is x2? And what is x1? -2. Do we agree with that so far? Okay, to solve it, what is -2 minus 2? -4. Okay, and what is 0 minus -2? That is going to be a +2. And what is -4 divided by 2? That's going to be a -2. So that means my answer is -2. So that means my slope is -2. And if I look at my graph, remember when we're graphing rise over run, that's why y over x. I'm going to rise 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. And yes, that's true. That's where my points are. Okay? Does this make sense? Okay, I'm going to let you copy down that part right now, and then we'll do B together. Start the second one. I won't erase anything from the first one yet, so you have a couple more seconds. But on B, it says, what is the average rate of change? Again, so we're finding the slope again. From -1 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 1. So is this written the same way as the x's in the first question? No. But I do still know my x values. It's a different notation, but you need to be familiar with both. So let's fill this out. And again, you don't have to. I'm not checking for this, but in your notes I expect you to, because honestly, the worst problem we make is our organization. So this is the best way I can help you organize your notes, okay? And it doesn't take that much longer. What is my x1 value? -1. And what's my x2 value? +1, okay? Now I'm going to erase the graph, everything that's on there, because I want to draw some new things on our graph. Okay, so this next problem is at -1 to to positive 1. That's my new interval. Okay, so if I'm looking for my x1 point, which is there, x is negative 1. What's the corresponding y value? Negative 7, so I want to fill that in. Now, for my second point, x is positive 1. Whoops. What is the corresponding y value? Negative. It's negative 7 again. If you look on your paper, it'll be a little bit clearer to see. My line is a little bit crooked, that's why. So if I fill out my equation, I have y2, which is negative 7, minus y1, which is another negative 7, okay, over x2, which is 1, minus x1, which is negative 1. Now, what is negative 7 minus negative 7? Becomes negative 7 plus 7, which is 0. I heard a few of you. And then what is 1 minus negative 1? That is 2. And what's 0 divided by 2? 0. So that means my slope is 0. Can you show me with your arms, what does a line whose slope is 0 look like? Yeah, a few of you know this is a horizontal line. So if I connected the dots between these two, is that a horizontal line? Is the slope of those 2 points 0? Yeah, so that's a way you can check your answer, and that's it. Okay. So next, we're going to do the actual example one. So that's the next one. It says find the average rate of change, again, so find the slope again, of f. And then it says over the interval 0, 9. That is not a coordinate pair. It says over the interval, which means that's my first x and my second x value. Okay? That's not a coordinate pair. That's not a point. That just means x is 0 and x is 9. Okay, so my first one is 0 and my second one is 9. And if you look at this graph, the points are already kind of filled out for you, or they're already plotted. So there's 1, and here's the second one. Okay, so if I look at my first x value, it's 0, negative 7. Is that y1? Yes. My second one is 9, 3. Okay. So I'm going to fill out my formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, what is 3 minus negative 7? 10, because I'm going to add them. And what's 9 minus 0? 9. And can that be simplified? No, so that's my slope. And if I look, I rise 10 and I run 9. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I rose 10, and then I'm going to run 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yes, my slope is 10 over 9. Okay. Are you ready to try the U-tries? Okay. Example 2, there are 3 U-tries. Can you do that for me, please, right now? You can work in your groups. I'll put up the answers in a few minutes. So he said, wouldn't it be easier just to do that, to do the rise over run at the end? Sometimes, but if you flip your paper over real quick, will it work with all of those problems back there to do rise over run? No, this graph is scaled by ones. It's a good way to check your answer when it's smaller, but on larger graphs measuring bigger things that aren't scaled by ones, it's a little bit harder to do, okay? Good question. Okay, here's the first one. that what you got? Are you ready for the second one, or are you still working on it? Okay, I'll give you about 30 more seconds for the second one. Here is the second answer. Is that what you got? You're not stupid. You guys need to stop saying that. You can say, I made a mistake. But don't say, I'm stupid or I'm dumb. No.
I am uneducated.
Stop it. You can say, I made a mistake. That's the only thing you're allowed to say. Okay, here's the last one. If you're not done yet, don't look at the answer. Is that what you got? Hello? Okay. Can I move on, please? What did you get instead? Can we do example 3 now, please? Okay. I think this is going to be the last one we get through today. It says, Teresa went skydiving, flipped to the backside. And this is why I said you can't count the rise over run every time. Teresa's height in meters as a function of time in seconds is graphed. What is the approximate average speed at which Teresa descended between 3 seconds and 8 seconds after she jumped? So, let's fill out our information. So I need my X's and my Y's. Okay, do I know any of this information? What do I know? 3 and 8 are my X's. Good. No, as long as they have the correct Y with them. Okay, so 3 and 8 are my X values. And I'm going to draw a line again just to make it easier to see. You don't have to do this, but since mine's up here, it's harder to follow. Oh my goodness. It's hard to follow along on the board. I know you guys don't pay attention anyway. So. Okay, whatever. That one's long enough. It goes to the point. Okay, so when X is 3, what is that approximate Y value? How do you know it's 650? It's halfway between 600 and 700? Is that what you were thinking? Okay, and then at 8, it's approximately here. So what's that Y value? That's also 350?
375.
Why is it 375? It's in between 350 and 400, so it's about 3/4 of the way up.
Thanks, JJ.
Okay, so if I set up my equation, I have y2, which is 375, minus y1, which is 650, and x2 is 8, and x1 is 3. So what is 375 minus 650? Negative 275. Yes, it is. What is 8 minus 3? 5. And can I simplify this? Yes. What? To negative 55. Now, this one's not done. I need a little bit more for my answer, okay? This is fully simplified. But if you look, I originally had height in meters and time in seconds. So height is my vertical axis. Time is my horizontal axis. So this answer is going to be negative 55 meters per second, okay? Because it has a unit on it. So this will be my final answer. And I know, if you don't what? Yes. And I know that it's negative because if you look back at the question, it said The average speed at which Teresa descended. And descended means goes down or gets smaller, okay?
Why do you always